Matt Piscatella, U.S. games industry analyst, has released some sales data about 90s consoles and the software that was released.
That means that we can take a closer look to see what sold in the past and finally find out which one's going to be better, the N64 Classic or the PlayStation Classic.
Hot take.
We have had a number of conversations over here at Rerez trying to figure out what's going to be the better system, the N64 Classic and the PlayStation Classic.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting about this is that we only know a little bit about what the PlayStation Classic is going to offer due to its library, but we know basically less about the N64 Classic because it is almost basically a pipe dream right now. It could be real or it could be something that never actually gets released.
I feel like we got the gist of what's going on with the PS1 Classic. So just recently, Matt Piscatella, he's part of the NPD group that kind of takes sales information and doles it out for people to see, right?
Yes.
He had released information of older consoles, specifically the 90s consoles, and I thought it'd be really cool to have this conversation because it's the sales data for what is like now the classic console wave that we're in, right? I believe it's between 1995, January of 1995 to September of 2018 for these classic, old consoles.
This is important because basically what we're looking at with the N64 Classic and the PlayStation Classic is that these systems have to basically represent the best of the best on these platforms because that would be the attraction. Now, when it comes to the NES Classic and the SNES Classic, the games they included on there were classic games that people wanted to play.
Yep.
That's why you saw Super Mario Brothers, that's why you saw Super Mario World, that's why you saw Star Fox.
Many of the best-selling games on the system.
Exactly. But when it comes to the PlayStation Classic and the N64 Classic, we didn't know if they were capable of doing that. Now, we have a far sharper image of what we're going to see with the PlayStation Classic, but both of us have basically... well, we think the game list is a little stupid.
Yeah. If you want to know more about our opinion on the game list, we did do a video a little while ago on the PS1 Classic. It's the one with the little red X in the thumbnail.
Yeah, you'll link it in somewhere down there. You'll find it.
It might not be the most positive video, but it does have all the games in there and our opinion on each of them.
But we have a list that basically proves what we said was correct.
Yeah, so let's look at the top 10 selling games in the US for the PlayStation 1.
Yes.
You want to do that first, and then we'll do the N64 second?
Do it.
Okay, Shane.
Yes.
Shane doesn't know the list, by the way.
I do not know. I do not know the list. I didn't look at it.
Number 10.
Number 10.
Driver. You are the wheelman.
I like Driver. Driver's actually a really good game. Fantastic controls. Actually, one of the reasons why I believe that Grand Theft Auto could have moved into a 3D space. Driver 2 actually had the ability to get out of the car, but Driver, the first one, is a hard-as-nails tough driver.
Dude.
But that's the game.
The introduction where you had to pull off all the moves in the garage.
Yeah, and if you don't...
A lot of people were broken by that alone, and they stopped playing. But if you got beyond that, the game was really great. Yeah. Okay, number 9. Number 9, Crash Bandicoot 2.
Okay, so the reason we're likely not seeing Crash Bandicoot games on this system as all is because basically there already is an insane trilogy. Now, personally, I believe that it's beneficial to have the original released because people can see what the original looked like and compare it to the new one.
Release one Crash game on the PS1 Classic and it drives sales to the Insane Trilogy. There's nothing wrong with having one of those games on this system, especially knowing that it's one of the best-selling games.
And remember,
there's more than one Crash game on here.
And remember, the Insane Trilogy didn't have an option where you could hit a button and see what the old game looked like, right? So this is a way to play the old game and see what it was like. Those original graphics are still really impressive for its time, too. There's a lot of great animations in there and great voiceover.
Yes, it's kind of timeless.
Yeah.
Would have worked. Okay, next is number 8, Metal Gear Solid.
Now, we are getting that one on the PlayStation, but as we mentioned in the previous video, without the dual analog joystick controller, without that rumble, you kind of lose a little bit of the feel of the gameplay, and you lose some of the vibration, which is actually kind of more important for that than most people would.
I'm definitely disappointed by that aspect. Number 7, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. I played this on the Dreamcast like crazy when I was younger.
The Dreamcast version, in my opinion, is one of the best versions of the game that was ever released, but that's a great franchise. It went on for a long time, but basically I would say all the games ever released on the PlayStation, they were all really fun. They're iconic. I can understand why this one's not coming back. Yeah, majority of reasons. Licensing from the actual skaters that are involved.
Sure.
Brands.
Some clothes as well.
Yeah,
brands on like signs and stuff.
Yes, it's a big licensing deal. That's a lot of stuff they have to go through with that one.
Okay, next up, Tekken 3 is number 6 on the list.
Now this is good because we get Tekken 3 on this collection, right? And I consider Tekken 3 to be the best one. That's my own personal opinion, but you know, it's nice to see that on there.
Okay, number 5 is Crash Bandicoot Warped.
Yes.
So that's Crash Bandicoot 3.
Yes, so basically same issue issue, same issue.
Yeah. Number 4, Gran Turismo 2.
Yes. Now, Gran Turismo 2, we didn't really talk about too much when we were talking about it before, but there's actually a lot of licensing issues to that game as well. Every single car, some of the tracks have licensing issues, and I'm not talking about music tracks, which also has licensing issues. I'm literally talking about the actual stages, right?
Yeah.
There are stages that they have to license. I don't know how the Nuremberg Rally works, but there's actually some places where they have to get the rights to use the logos and the names and stuff like that.
There's a lot of stuff that they'd have to get the rights to. Cars, music, stages. It's just like across the map,
becomes a big problem, yeah.
Okay, next, number 3. Again, this is the most sold titles for the PlayStation Classic. Just a reminder, this is Final Fantasy VII is number 3, and we are seeing it on the Classic.
So that's a good one to include because it probably is the best. Not the. I don't want to start that conversation.
Final Fantasy IX is the best.
Everyone says that. Final Fantasy VII is
you
the best.
You 8 lovers,
selling.
you can go suck an egg, man. Nine's the best.
I don't think they should have
limited.
limited...
Creator of Final Fantasy said 9 was the best.
I don't want to say that they should have limited the amount of games that they had on the PlayStation Classic. I think they could have added a heck of a lot more, but I firmly believe that PlayStation... or that Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9 should have been included because I think they all have something to say that's very definitive for the PlayStation. But
I could do without 8.
At least you get 7.
Okay, number 2, Gran Turismo Racing.
Yes.
The first Gran Turismo. Again.
Same problem with the second one, right? It's the same licensing issues and stuff like that. So unfortunately, that's why you can't see that on here.
What do you think the number 1 game is?
The number 1 game on the Sony PlayStation.
You might get it.
If I had to guess?
Yeah.
Crash Bandicoot?
Bingo.
All right. So, folks, the list that we just talked about right there. How many games are on the PlayStation Classic that are on the top 10 list?
3.
That's not good. That's really not good. Some of the most iconic, some of the best games available on the PlayStation, the ones that have sold the best, only 3 of them are going to be on the PlayStation Classic.
Yeah, it's very disappointing. So, that's the... It's sad to read over this list and see what could have been, per se. This is just 10 games. The Classic's going to have 20 games.
Yeah.
And with 20 games, they couldn't even manage to get more of the top-selling games.
And this isn't even some wild random list we found online. This is legitimately from someone that knows.
It's legit sales for in the U.S. at least for the PlayStation 1 between 1995, even though the PlayStation 1 I believe was released a year earlier, between 1995 and 2018. Okay.
Yeah.
So next up, we wanted to look at the N64 top 10.
Yes.
Because I believe that these are a lot more... I mean, there's some titles that you may not be able to get for the system, but I believe these are a lot more viable for Nintendo. Whereas... I spoke to Shane about this a little bit earlier, and I want to jump back to the PS1 Classic really quickly. I feel like the PS1 Classic is being released as a, well, let's get this thing out the door. Okay, let's get this out the door kind of as cheap as possible, right?
It feels that way.
We saw that in the controller, and I believe that because it feels like they didn't try their best with licensing these other titles, right? Because there are some classic titles that don't have the music problems, that don't have whatever, like track problems like Gran Turismo does, that are fantastic, and you just have to maybe toss a few bucks at Konami for Castlevania, Symphony of the Night, or dig Tomba out of the grave, that'd be great. So yeah, no, it just feels like Sony has said, oh, everyone else is releasing classic consoles. We're going to release one, and here's a couple bucks to spend on creating this.
They called it the PlayStation Classic for a reason. They're trying to basically live off the same... I think it's called pilot fish marketing. The idea is that you basically go, oh, we can release a product that looks so close to that, we can make it work. Now, let's just keep this fair. In terms of numbers of units sold, way more people bought a PlayStation than they did a Nintendo 64. Yep. Keep this in mind as we talk about this list, though.
Okay. So the N64 Classic,
yes,
we're in on it?
10 to 1 of the top-selling Nintendo 64 games.
In the
pretty
US.
much, of all time.
Okay, number 10. And again... we might be able to see these on the N64 Classic. I think we can.
Yes.
But not this one. Probably not this one. Number 10 is Star Wars Shadows of the Umpire, the baseball game.
Now that's definitely Umpire. This is a very interesting game because it was basically one of the games that was created to bring a new storyline to the Star Wars universe to see if there was any interest there for younger gamers and younger consumers to see if Star Wars is alive, right?
I remember that,
Now, this game I believe could be brought over. I do not believe that there is enough of a fight out there. I think Disney
You think
and
they can do it?
Nintendo. I think they could. I think Disney would be willing to work with Nintendo to get this game out there. I don't see an issue with it. I don't see that as being a big problem.
Has been partnering with Universal Studios. Do you think that would be problematic?
Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. I said Shadows of the Empire. It's Shadow of the Empire.
Yeah. It's a game that
Anyway.
LucasArts made a long time ago.
Yeah.
I don't think there would be much of a hatred there for that to come out.
I don't know that
I've seen a lot of
Yeah.
these games. Actually, I've seen that game specifically get re-released recently on GOG.com.
Oh, no way. I didn't know that.
So I believe that this could actually be something you could see on the N64
Yeah.
Classic. Okay, I do think this one could happen.
My one gripe is even back in the day, I thought the controls weren't the greatest, so I don't know if it holds up quite as well.
Well, I'll tell you.
No?
Having seen it's definitely aged, but it's
Yeah.
still
Does
a
it have
really
that?
interesting thing.
Yeah, it has maybe a bit of that nostalgic pull.
Sure it is, and that's what we're all about here. We're on Rerez, nostalgic pull on these classic
in the
systems.
classic systems,
Yeah.
you want that nostalgia.
That's what it is, right? That's what they're
I
making.
hope
it
they
for.
play well too.
Yeah.
Okay, number
okay.
9, Diddy
Yep.
Kong Racing.
Okay, so
It's a little wrapped up in a bit of another company, but I still believe that they could probably get this if they
they
wanted
could.
it.
Nintendo firmly owns the rights to this, even though Rare had developed the game themselves. Keep this in mind: the moment that you make a Nintendo game, it's a Nintendo game. It doesn't matter who else worked on it. Nintendo is pretty secure with those rights. They definitely could re-release it, and the Rare name would have to be
Yeah.
on there as well.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine you wouldn't see this game.
Right. I mean, they are working together with Microsoft to bring Banjo-Kazooie to Smash. So
Yeah. Keep in mind, folks, all right? When we saw Banjo-Kazooie on the Xbox 360 on arcade, and we saw it on the One with Retro or Rare Replay, those games coming back, they actually removed the Nintendo logo out of those games. And if Nintendo so deemed it appropriate, they could remove the Rare logo out of there if they wanted to, right? I don't think you're going to see it get that desperate, but if they had to do it, I think they could.
yeah, so maybe the IP problems are a little less tense there, but there are some games a little bit later on the list that I think might still be troublesome.
Okay.
Okay, after Diddy Kong Racing, number 8, the most sales on the N64 in the US, Super Smash Brothers.
Easy. That one's included.
Easy get.
That's a day one. If
Super
they don't
easy
do that,
get.
it would be shocking.
Number 7, another easy get that I believe, and a game I actually just played recently on the 3DS. You want to guess what it is? I mentioned it.
Ocarina of Time?
Nope.
Majora's Mask? Starfox 64?
Yeah, Starfox 64 is number 7.
Yeah, okay. I mean, obviously, right? Like, that's an easy one.
Easy get for the classic. What we had discussed before was that we would love to have the inclusion of the Rumble Pack within the controller in the classic. If we ever do see a classic, if they're going to have Star Fox, I want the Rumble, man.
Yeah, like...
The 3DS doesn't have the Rumble, I don't think.
For those of you that don't know Star Fox 64, if you're watching in the UK, Lilac Wars, the reason you couldn't get that was because I think on the Commodore 64, or I want to say the
Someone will correct you in the comments.
Yeah, it's there is a bunch of British like computers and stuff like that. There is a Star Fox on one of those, and it's somebody else's game, and he owns the rights to it, so they couldn't call it Star Fox in the UK.
Anyway, I think everyone would be very happy to see Star Fox 64 on the classic. I think it's a no-brainer. Okay, number 6, Donkey Kong 64.
Yes. Now, again, here's another one that is kind of special because Rare had developed it.
Yeah.
But I think that, again, it's something... Because if they could have done it, they would have released... Rare would have released it somewhere else already, right? So I firmly believe this is something that Nintendo could do.
I believe Nintendo has a firmer grip on this because, I mean, Donkey Kong, right? I don't know if it's held up so great over time.
No, but that's an idea of what it is.
Yes, it is. It's kind of a trudge to get through because it is such a collectathon. They took the ideas that were implemented into games like Banjo-Kazooie and Conker's Bad Fur Day, and then they were like, let's just make 2,000 things for you to collect instead of like 200 or whatever.
To be fair, I think a lot of people actually really got into this game originally because you got a memory card, the RAM expansion. Yeah, so... That was a reason to get it.
Okay, number 5. Number 5 is a Pokemon game.
Pokemon Stadium?
Bingo.
Okay, so Pokemon Stadium. Now, Pokemon Stadium is definitely a game that boy, I don't think would come.
No, I don't think it's going to come to the classic.
Because you would need to have some of the cool features.
The Kart reader that goes into the back of the N64 controller. They could implement some sort of a fix into it and allow you to kind of like do that, but it gets a little too like muddy at that point, I feel like.
There's other things you can do without that, but honestly, I just feel that one of the core functions of the game is that, and I just don't think Nintendo is going to want to put themselves in that position, so I think they would be better off. I believe it would be better off not being included.
I think they would gain more fan favor, and maybe people in the comments will kill me because they love Stadium, but I think they'll gain more fan favor by having another Pokemon game on there, Snap.
Yes, I agree. Pokemon Snap, I think, is a very underrated game. Plus, if you have the Switch and you're probably thinking maybe a new Snap game might be fun, maybe it'd be cool to reintroduce people to the Snap concept. Snap is a really fun game.
Yep. Okay, next up is number 4. Number 4 is... I'm trying to play an Ocarina.
Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, it's Ocarina of Time. I suck.
I believe you're going to see Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time.
I think both.
Same.
I think both. Yeah. And actually, you know what? Majora's Mask isn't on here.
Yeah,
Majora's Mask isn't on here. Not a top 10 seller, maybe a top 20 seller. I don't know if Majora's Mask did it as well as people think it did.
No, it's not a bad seller, but it didn't do as well as Ocarina.
It's remembered very fondly, of course. Yep. Okay, so Ocarina of Time, man, it goes without saying, a very classic adventure game. You know,
later on with the release of the later releases of N64 games, many of them use the RAM expansion slot.
Yep.
So some games that actually lose features. So a lot of consumers out there that didn't want to go out and buy a RAM expansion, which is not buy the games. So it caused a problem. And mixture of a system right there. That's just something you need to be aware of, that it did happen. So the games are still worth playing. In some cases, especially with some of the Star Wars games, or one of the ones, I think it's just Rogue Leader, Rogue Commander, whatever it is.
Rogue Squadron.
Rogue Squadron, thank you. Rogue Squadron has a high resolution mode when you use the RAM expansion, and it looks really cool.
Looks, much better than it has any right to. Okay, so Ocarina's out of the way. Number 3, we're getting down to probably the most famous titles of all time on the N64. Do you want to guess? 3, 2, 1? What's number 3?
Okay, so number 3, I'm going to guess is...
You didn't see, did you?
No. Okay. Mario Kart 64?
Bingo.
Okay, so this has to come in. There's no way it doesn't come in.
Dude, if they have this on the Classic, they've filled in a gap that the PS1 Classic couldn't.
Yes,
well,
exactly.
They could have, but they won't.
Yes.
Okay? A great kart racer.
Yeah, I think that for many people, this is one of the reasons, like... This game alone is a reason for me to buy the N64 Classic, period. This is one of the best kart games they ever made.
Right. A lot of people are saying that Mario Kart 8 and Deluxe are considered the best Mario Kart games now. But again, the rose-tinted glasses, I believe that so many people have such fond memories of the 4-player action racing kind of thing of Mario Kart 64. This is like, it has to be on there. If it's
there was hidden skills to how you could race better in it and stuff.
Battle mode.
Yeah, exactly.
Battle mode was awesome.
After this game, everything that came out was never nearly at the same level.
Yeah.
And Mario Kart 64 just knocked that out of the park. It really was good.
It felt like everything was just positioned perfectly. It just felt right. It wasn't too difficult. It wasn't too easy. Yeah. Okay, next up, number 2. I said there would be some IP issues.
Okay, so let me just say this.
You know what
because
it is.
2 can't be Mario 64.
No.
It can't be Perfect Dark as Perfect Dark. GoldenEye 64.
Yes, it is.
Okay, that is unfortunate, folks. GoldenEye 007 has tons of rights issues.
Yeah.
The ownership of the 007.
Music.
Likenesses.
Yeah.
Of Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah.
And of the other people in the game, too, right? There's the actor that plays his Jaws is in it.
Sean Bean.
Sean Bean.
Kill Sean Bean in the game? Who would have thought?
Yeah, there is a lot going on in this game in terms of that. But you also have music. You have the fact that Rare originally created that game, right? And now Rare is owned by Microsoft. There is a lot at play here. And take this into consideration. If the game comes out, I don't exactly understand 100% how everything would work, but I do believe the current owner of the 007 game franchises is either EA or Activision. I don't really know who it is.
I think EA was the one that did the GoldenEye kind of sequel for the DS and for the Wii or GameCube.
Yeah.
So I think, unless it's changed hands recently, I think
it may have been. All right, see, this is what we're doing right here. We know what we're talking about sometimes. This is hard, who actually owns the gaming rights to this franchise. So that becomes a player that has to be involved to relicense it, possibly. So there's a lot that goes on play here. And because it's GoldenEye 007, Whoever owns the rights to have written the story has to be paid. There is so much that has to be taken into consideration.
Can
here.
I say a thing?
Yeah.
I don't know that it holds up as well as people remember, man. Multiplayer was fun back in the day, but we've gotten such better FPS control since then.
But this is about the classic
again,
idea, right?
I understand it's rose-tinted glasses, and I can handle it if it's on the system. I just won't be playing it all that much.
Unfortunately, I would want to see Perfect Dark, right? Perfect Dark was a fantastic game,
Basically,
and I would love to see
the
that.
pseudo-sequel to GoldenEye 007.
And if you don't get 007, I think Perfect Dark would be a great inclusion. However, Perfect Dark is better on Xbox Live. So if you get it on the 360 or the Xbox One, that's your game right
Rare
there.
Replay?
Rare Replay, yeah.
As well, right?
It's a fantastic version of the game. It's been upgraded, fixed, it looks amazing. It really does. And you can shoot Peter Molyneux if you want. He's actually a model in the game, and it's hilarious.
You can shoot Peter Molyneux?
He's in the game, and they did some stuff
like that.
Can
make him talk and say promises, and then you're like, promise unfulfilled.
No, but they you could tell that developers put a lot of time and effort into making that Xbox version of the game, and Peter Molyneux was working with Microsoft at the time, so they put a lot of the people that were there working on it. So they did a really good job with that. Unfortunately, you're not going to see that in the N64 release. Because of the rights issues with that game,
I don't think
you got problems with that too. So it's just a lot of issues and a lot of problems that kind of really compound on each other with that. And of course, the top one is Mario 64, and that's going to be on there no matter what. Yeah.
Actually, no, the top one was NBA. No.
I was like, what?
Was there even an NBA game on the 64? No, it is. It is Super Mario 64. It's going to be the first title, like when they inevitably show off the classic, it's going to be the first title that they show.
Yeah. Now, let me make this clear too. The N64, or the classic range of systems up until this point, we've heard rumors that there might be games that were released, like a Sin and Punishment, which was a game that came out of the States.
Yeah.
But in North America, a lot of gamers want it. We just didn't get it here.
The thing is, the thing was fully translated into English. It would be so easy for them to port that over, because it was ported to, I believe it was, if it wasn't the Wii Shop channel, then it was on the Wii U. But it was ported to North America. We did get it. And
now,
it's playable.
With all this being said, the interesting part about what an N64 Classic could represent is things that what Sony did with the Classic is Sony basically just, as far as we know, just put ROMs or ISOs on a system, and they just got their emulator running it. Okay, PlayStation as a team has been emulating their games for far longer on the PSP, so they know how to do that stuff.
Their classic line of whatever downloadable titles.
Now, I've heard this time and time again that people are like, well, I'll buy a PlayStation Classic and I'll just hack it and put whatever games I wanted. We don't know if you're going to be able to do that. We don't know how much space is in the PlayStation Classic.
We're assuming it's going to be as little as humanly possible, because this does feel like they're just trying to get it out the door, unfortunately.
The NES and the Super Nintendo Classic didn't have a lot of memory, but guess what? You don't need a lot of memory.
Like, you would probably have to pay more to get a card that was like very, very small than because like,
in large batch runs, it's a lot less to do that. And remember, they needed to have a little bit of space because there is the operating system and stuff like that, right?
The user interface, the operating system.
So, unfortunately, what you might not be realizing is that if you're going to hack the N60 or the PlayStation Classic, ISOs are larger. Discs are just bigger because there's larger audio files, there's music there's sound files, there's movies, textures, there's a whole bunch of other things.
Where we were talking maybe like kilobytes or megabytes in previous classic consoles from Nintendo, we're talking about hundreds of megabytes per game.
Now, the Nintendo 64, on the opposite end, has more in common with the SNES and NES in that regard.
It does. The ROM sizes are pretty small, man.
The cartridges did not have that much space because they were super expensive to make. So what you're dealing with at the time is that those games are actually a lot more compressed, which, by the way, is all the more wonderment that they were able to make the games they did with the limited resources they had on the cartridge.
Resident Evil 2.
Yeah, it's an amazing version.
Cinematics into the... It's amazing just for the fact that they got cinematics onto a freaking cart.
So I believe that because we've seen the NES and the SNES get hacked, I think people are going to find a way to get GoldenEye to run on there and stuff like that. So I believe that's going to happen. Yeah. But with all that said, with all that out there, I firmly believe that the N64 Classic has a better shot at giving people more of a classic representation of the console they purchased compared to the PlayStation.
It's so sad to say that, because when we first started talking about our hopes and dreams for these classic battles, like I was really hoping it'd be like fighting tooth and nail for, oh man, these things are coming out, and which one are you going to buy? What team are you on? Now, again, biggest PS1 fanboy. You know, I'm always collecting games for it.
I love PlayStation 1. Yeah,
you didn't get any of the games.
Nah, see, this is going to be a big issue. I really feel that there has to be some solution that Sony can throw into it. I can't believe that they wouldn't work somehow to get the rights laid out somehow. They're still making Gran Turismo games. Those conversations still have to be at play. They must do something to get those games back, or at least give us the ability to get more games in the future, because I firmly don't believe that what's on there is good enough. But we know if Nintendo does it, they can do it well.
Oh, and look, because those IP, most of them, they barely have to reach for.
Yeah,
they're literally sitting right there.
And it's not out of the world a possibility here that we see that Nintendo has a conversation with Microsoft to get some of those classic Rare games over. That's not inconceivable. It's just a lot more difficult when it comes to GoldenEye, because there's a lot more players on that one.
Heck, I could even see them grabbing a Banjo-Kazooie or something.
Sure,
like there's some good favor there, because there is still a little relationship, a decent relationship there between Microsoft and Nintendo. They are talking, so.
Yeah, we basically came up with this big list of all these classic games a while ago on Rerez 1, where we talked about what we want to see on the N64 Classic. I'm excited to see what they get announced, but to be fair, I don't think there's a lot at stake here when it comes to the PlayStation Classic version. But folks, what do you think? Do you believe the PlayStation Classic is the dominant one? Or are you like us and think that the N64 is the dominant one on the idea of what they could possibly release?
I have a question too. Do you think we're going to see another Direct, and in that Direct they're going to show off the N64 Classic? Everyone seems to be talking about that these days. Do you think we're going to see this before the new year?
I'm 95% sure we're going to see that sometime.
I don't think we're going to see it in stores before the new year. Like that would be insane.
It would be nuts. But I'm honestly thinking right now, just because of all the information we're hearing, everything we're hearing, I think sometime before November ends, we're going to hear about the N64 Classic, regardless of when it comes out.
You heard it here, folks. Shane's making it happen.
Yeah,
good job.
That's me. I'm the one doing it. I'm on the phone Nintendo every day. Let us know what you think about these two items in the comments below, and tell us what you think is going to be the best one.